You're invited to step back in time some 4,000 years to explore the ancient land of the Bible, what we now call the Middle East, and to meet legendary people whose stories have influenced millions of lives throughout history. Reader's Digest brings you Great People of the Bible. You'll see how God leads Abraham to his ultimate test of faith. Will he sacrifice his son at the Lord's command? You'll meet Abraham's son Isaac, whose twin sons Esau and Jacob, in a lifetime of conflict, battle for their birthright and their father's blessing. And you'll meet Jacob's handsome and compassionate son Joseph, sold as a slave into Egypt by his brothers, who eventually becomes one of the most powerful men in the court of Pharaoh. These are tales of intrigue, full of twists and turns, lies and deceptions, drama and passion. They are an integral part of history's most revered work of literature, the Bible. Abraham lived to the age of 175, as the Bible describes him, an old man and full of years. His sons, Isaac and Ishmael, came together for the last time to bury their beloved father in the cave of Machpelah, in the field east of Mamre, where they had buried Sarah. After Abraham died, God blessed Isaac, and Isaac and Rebekah settled at Beer Lahai Roi. After 20 years of marriage, Rebekah finally became pregnant. Rebekah was having difficulty conceiving a child, but Isaac prayed to the Lord, and the Lord answered his prayer, thereby perpetuating the family of Abraham. Rebekah's pregnancy was extremely difficult. She had conceived twins, and the children within her were scuffling even before they were born. This was distressing to Rebekah, who said, "If it is to be this way, why do I live?" In Genesis 25:23, the Lord explained to Rebekah,
"Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples born of you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The elder shall serve the younger."
And when her time came to give birth, the first twin was born covered in red hair. The second child emerged holding on to his brother's heel. The first child they named Esau, and the younger they named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when his sons were born. As the boys grew, Esau learned to be an outdoorsman and a skillful hunter, while Jacob was more of a shepherd and herder. Esau became his father's favorite, and Jacob was his mother's. And as the years went by, the brothers grew their separate ways, and when they were young men, something happened that drew them even further apart. One day, when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau staggered back from the field, exhausted and starving. "Let me eat some of that red stuff, for I am famished," said Esau. And Jacob said, "First, sell me your birthright." Jacob was demanding that Esau turn over to him whatever might become his as Isaac's firstborn. The famished Esau agreed to the sale with the words, "I am about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me?" "Swear to me first," insisted Jacob. And Esau swore to him. Only then did Jacob offer him food, and only later did the full effect of this oath become apparent. When a famine came to the land, Isaac considered going to Egypt, where he knew there would be food, as his father Abraham had done before him. He traveled as far as Gerar. But then Isaac received his first vision. In Genesis 26:2, the Lord appeared to him and said,
Do not go down to Egypt. Settle in the land that I shall show you. Reside in this land as an alien, and I will be with you, and will bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands, and I will fulfill the oath that I swore to your father Abraham.
So Isaac trusted in the word of the Lord and settled in Gerar, the land of the Philistines. When the men of Gerar asked him about Rebekah, he was afraid to say she was his wife. Because she is so attractive, he thought, the men might kill me for her sake. So he told them she was his sister. When Isaac had been in Gerar a long time, one day King Abimelech looked out and saw Isaac caressing Rebekah. He called for Isaac and said, So she is your wife. Why then did you say she was your sister? Isaac then explained that he was fearful that if he said she was his wife, he might be killed for her sake. Abimelech was upset with Isaac. What have you done to us? One of the people might easily have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us. But sensing the hand of the Lord, Abimelech warned all the people, Whoever touches this man or his wife shall be put to death. The Lord blessed Isaac so abundantly that his crops reaped 100-fold, and he became very wealthy. From there, Isaac went up to Beersheba, where the Lord appeared to him. In Genesis 26:24, the Lord said to him,
I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you, and will bless you and make your offspring numerous for my servant Abraham's sake.
In Genesis 27:1, we read of Isaac as old and rather feeble. His eyes were dim so that he could not see. He called to his firstborn and favorite son, Esau, for he wanted to give him his blessing. To understand the full impact of this story, it is important to know that according to ancient belief, blessings or curses were powerful acts because they had the power to produce the intended results. A blessing, once given, could neither be withdrawn nor given to another, for it came from God. Here is where God's prophecy to Rebekah before her sons were born is fulfilled. The elder shall serve the younger. Isaac told Esau to take his weapons and hunt game, and then prepare a savory dish for him before he gave him his blessing. Rebekah overheard Isaac's instructions to Esau and quickly devised a plan so that Jacob, her favorite son, would receive the blessing from Isaac. She told Jacob to choose 2 choice kids from the household flock and bring them to her, so that she might prepare savory food for Isaac. She then explained to Jacob, You shall take it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies. But Jacob was fearful that his father would see through the deception. Look, he said, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a man of smooth skin. If my father were to feel me, he would know I was Jacob, not Esau, and he'd bring his curse upon me rather than his blessing. Let your curse be on me, she said. Obey my word and get them for me. And so it was that Jacob got them, and Rebekah prepared savory food, just as Isaac loved. For his disguise, Rebekah took some of Esau's finest clothes and put them on Jacob. She put the skins of the kids on his wrists and hands, and on the smooth part of his neck. When Rebekah was satisfied that Jacob would appear hairy to Isaac, she handed him the savory food she had prepared. Jacob entered the tent and called to his father. My father, he said. Who are you, my son? Asked the old man. I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my gain, so that you may bless me. Isaac was suspicious. How is it you hunted the game and cooked it so quickly, my son? And Jacob answered, Because the Lord your God granted me success. Come near, that I may feel you, my son, to know whether or not you are really my son Esau." So Jacob went up close to him. Isaac felt his hands and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. Are you really my son Esau?" And Jacob answered, "I am." He then gave his father the food and wine, and his father ate and drank. After having eaten, Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near and kiss me, my son." Jacob came near and kissed him, and Isaac smelled the smell of Esau's clothing. And now, convinced he was Esau, he gave Jacob his blessing. No sooner had Isaac finished blessing Jacob than his brother Esau returned from his hunting. When Esau went in to his father with the food he had prepared, Isaac asked, "Who are you?" Esau answered, "I am your firstborn son, Esau." Isaac then realized he had been deceived, and he asked Esau, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me before you came, and I have blessed him? Yes, and blessed he shall be." When Esau heard his father's words, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and pleaded with his father, "Bless me, me also, father." But Isaac said, "Your brother came deceitfully, and he has stolen your blessing." "He has supplanted me twice," cried Esau. "First he took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my blessing. Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Then Isaac answered Esau's plea, "I have already made him your lord, and I have given him all his brothers as servants, with grain and wine to sustain him. What then can I do for you, my son?" "Have you only one blessing?" cried Esau. "Bless me, me also, father." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. There was nothing Isaac could do. The deed was done, and Esau had lost the blessing he should have received as the firstborn son. Now Esau hated Jacob for what he had done, and Esau vowed that once his father died, he would kill Jacob. Esau's threat reached Rebekah, and she explained to Jacob, "Your brother is consoling himself by planning to kill you." She then instructed Jacob to flee at once to Haran, where he could stay with her brother Laban. "Until Esau forgets what you have done to him, then I will send for you and bring you back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Then Isaac called Jacob and once again blessed him, and ordered him not to marry any of the Canaanite women, but to go at once to Padan Aram and take one of the daughters of Rebekah's brother Laban as a wife. Jacob then left Beersheba and headed toward Haran, and it was on this journey that he experienced an astonishing heavenly vision. He had traveled about 12 miles in the wilderness to the north of what is now called Jerusalem. When the sun had set, he chose a place to rest, and he picked up one of the stones for a pillow, put it under his head, and fell asleep. He dreamed there was a ladder suspended between heaven and earth, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him. And in Genesis 28:13, he said to Jacob,
"I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. And your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth. And you shall spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your offspring. Know that I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you."
When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he said, "How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." He anointed with oil the stone upon which he had slept, setting it apart for God's use, and named the place Bethel, meaning house of God. He also vowed to give God 1/10 of his earnings, or a tithe, if he were, as God had promised, to return safely to Canaan. Jacob continued on his journey, and as he came close to Haran, he saw a well in a field with 3 flocks of sheep lying there beside it. There was a huge stone on the mouth of the well, and in the evening, when all the flocks were gathered, the shepherds together would remove the stone, water the sheep, and then replace the stone. The shepherds were from Haran, and they indeed knew Jacob's uncle Laban. In fact, Laban's daughter Rachel was just arriving at the well with her father's flock. When Jacob first caught sight of his beautiful cousin Rachel, he didn't wait for the other shepherds. Alone, by himself, he rolled the stone from the well and watered the flocks. Oh! Rachel was immediately taken with the stranger, as he was with her. Could this be the woman from Haran that Jacob would be taking for his wife? Jacob ran to Rachel and kissed her. He explained he was her father's relative, and she ran home to tell him. Jacob stayed in Laban's home and worked with him, and after a month, Laban said to him, "Just because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." Now Laban had 2 daughters. The beautiful Rachel was the younger, and the less attractive Leah was older, and Jacob had fallen in love with Rachel. So he made a bargain with Laban. "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." And Laban agreed. The 7 years seemed to Jacob but a few days because of his love for Rachel. And after the 7 years had passed, he went to Laban and said, "Give me Rachel as my wife, that I may consummate my marriage with her." Laban agreed and prepared a huge feast. On the wedding night, there was great joy and celebration. There was music, dancing, and lavishly prepared food and wine. During the ceremony, and in the tradition of the times, the bride was veiled, and what Jacob did not realize was that Laban had tricked him. Behind the wedding veil was not Rachel, whom he loved, but Leah, her sister. For 7 years, Jacob had dreamed about this day, and he was perhaps the most excited of all who had come to celebrate with him. He ate and drank and danced and partied through the day and on into the night. Not for one moment did Jacob suspect that Laban would deceive him. He had no reason to doubt that he was marrying his first love, Rachel. And on his wedding night, he thought he had taken Rachel into his tent. Jacob did not discover until the next morning that he had consummated the marriage not with Rachel, but with her older sister Leah. He was devastated. "What is this you have done to me?" cried Jacob to Laban. "Did I not serve you for 7 years for Rachel?" Laban calmly explained that local custom required that the older daughter be married first. However, he told Jacob if he would finish the bridal week with Leah, he would give him Rachel, if he would serve him for another 7 years. Jacob agreed. After the week with Leah, Jacob married Rachel and served his uncle another 7 years. Leah, the unloved wife, proved to be fertile, while the much-loved Rachel did not conceive for many years. Leah had 4 sons, Reuben, and Simeon, and Levi, and Judah. But like Sarah and Rebekah before her, Rachel also had difficulty conceiving a child. Since she failed to bear children, she became envious of her sister and offered her maidservant Bilhah to Jacob, that she may have children through her. Bilhah conceived and gave birth to Dan, and then a second son, Naphtali. And when Leah ceased to have children, she offered her maidservant Zilpah to Jacob. And she bore Jacob 2 sons, Gad and Asher. Leah then bore 2 more sons, Issachar and Zebulun, and a daughter, Dinah. Then, finally, God remembered Rachel. He heard her prayers, and she bore a son, and this child they named Joseph. All told, 11 of the 12 ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel were born during Jacob's 20 years of exile. Benjamin was yet to be born. After Joseph was born, Jacob spent 6 more years working for Laban. He was awaiting his mother's message that it was safe to return to his homeland, and he wanted to provide for his own household. For his wages, Jacob made an unusual request of Laban. In Genesis 30:31, Jacob says,
"You shall not give me anything. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from it every speckled and spotted sheep, and every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and such shall be my wages."
Laban agreed to the bargain, and Jacob left reassured. Once again, however, Laban tried to deceive Jacob. As soon as they parted, Laban had his sons remove every one of those animals from his flock. This time, Jacob realized he was being cheated, and he had to protect himself from Laban and his kinsmen. God was watching over Jacob, however, and he saw to it that despite Laban's underhanded ways, Jacob's flocks grew larger and stronger, and Jacob became prosperous. The more prosperous he became, the more envious Laban and his kinsmen became. In Genesis 31:3, the Lord said to Jacob,
"Return to the land of your fathers, where you were born, and I will be with you."
Jacob then told Leah and Rachel about his plans to leave Laban. He also told them about a dream he had in which the angel of God said,
"I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. Leave this land at once and return to the land of your birth."
Trying to avoid a confrontation, while Laban was away shearing sheep, Jacob fled Padan Aram with his wives and children and servants and livestock and all his possessions. Before they left, and unbeknownst to anyone else, Rachel stole her father's household idols, which were precious to him, since they ensured his leadership of the family. She hid them in the saddlebags of her camel. Three days later, when Laban returned, he was furious. He pursued Jacob for 7 days and finally caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead, west of the Euphrates River. Jacob and his people feared for the worst. They prepared for battle. But there was none. Laban had come in peace. He was not looking for a fight. as much as he was looking for an explanation. Not only was Laban insulted that Jacob had left secretly, not even allowing him to kiss his daughters and grandchildren goodbye, but he was further upset by the idea that Jacob had stolen his teraphim, the images of his household gods. Jacob was indignant at having been accused of stealing the idols. He not only swore he didn't have the idols, but he also promised he would kill anyone found with them. He invited Laban to search the camp. When Laban came to Rachel's tent, she was sitting on the camel bags where she had hidden the idols. Rachel pleaded that she could not rise, for the way of women was upon her. So despite the search, Laban never found his idols. Afterwards, Jacob and Laban made a pact of peace. The following day, Laban kissed his daughters and grandchildren goodbye, and the two men and their parties went their separate ways. Even though he had avoided a battle with Laban, Jacob still had his brother Esau to deal with. He decided to send messengers ahead to Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. He told them to tell Esau that he had been living with Laban as an alien and had been detained there until now. When the messengers returned, they told Jacob that Esau was fast on his way to meet Jacob, and he was coming with 400 men. Jacob panicked. He and his party were no match for 400 men, and he was afraid that Esau would kill them all. He did what he could. First, he sent lavish gifts to Esau, including hundreds of sheep and goats and scores of cattle and camels, hoping to appease him. And at the same time, he moved his household and remaining goods to a safer place, back across the Jabbok, a tributary of the Jordan River. One of the most baffling stories in the Bible occurs when Jacob was alone that night on the bank of the Jabbok. Suddenly, he found himself wrestling in the dark with a mysterious stranger. Religious scholars for generations have debated the significance of this wrestling match. Does it symbolize the Israelites' persistent struggles with the Lord and the divine blessing it earned? Is it the battle every human must undergo with the forces of evil? In any event, Jacob and the stranger wrestled until the break of dawn, and when the stranger saw that he could not bring Jacob down, he struck Jacob's hip at its socket and sprained it. Nevertheless, Jacob eventually dominated the struggle. At daybreak, the man said, "Let me go!" But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." In Genesis 32:28, the man replied,
"You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with humans, and have prevailed."
Before the sun rose, the stranger left. As Jacob limped away, he realized he had come face to face with God and survived. To this day, many Israelites do not eat the thigh muscle that is on the hip socket, for that is where Jacob was struck. Jacob rejoined his family, but he still remained fearful as his brother and his men kept getting closer. Esau and his men were now within sight. Jacob called his family together. Fearful that they would not survive a battle with Esau, he motioned them to stay back. When Esau came closer, Jacob bowed to the ground 7 times. The two brothers, who had not seen each other for over 20 years, approached each other. Jacob's fears of Esau were unfounded, for his forgiving brother ran joyously toward him, embraced him, and kissed him. Esau asked Jacob what he meant by sending all those gifts. And Jacob replied, "To find favor with my Lord." But Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." But Jacob insisted, and Esau finally accepted the gifts. That day, Esau returned to Seir. And Jacob continued to Succoth, where he set up his tents and made pens for his cattle.